Welcome everyone. This is the Teaching Church. I'm glad you're here. Today I'm going to do another video about popular verses taken out of context. Today's verse comes out of the book of Philippians, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Probably all know that verse and have heard that verse. It's a popular verse. It's on shirts, it's on hats. Sports stars wear it underneath their eyes when they play the game. Some people even have it tattooed on their body. But what is the real meaning of this verse in context? So let's take a look at it. So to understand this verse, we have to look back at the life of the man who wrote this verse. And that's the Apostle Paul. Paul wrote this book and this verse while locked away in a Roman prison. This book is known as one of his prison epistles. So in order to get to the core of this verse, we must take a brief look at the highlights of Paul's hardships since his conversion in 35 AD when he believed and acknowledged Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of God. Immediately after Paul's conversion, Jesus tells him, "You will suffer great persecution for my name's sake." Now, can you imagine right after you became a believer, you accepted Christ, the first thing that Jesus says to you, that you're going to face persecution, hardships, trials, and tribulations? You probably weren't thinking that. Jesus didn't say, hey, think better, live better, be a better you, find your passion. I want to make you rich, and I want to make all of your dreams come true. He didn't say that. Paul was probably thinking, where were all these self-help books when I was around? Okay, so Paul then gives us a list of his sufferings in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Paul was beat, he was whipped, he was stoned, he was shipwrecked, he was cold, he was naked, he was hungry, he was in prison a few times, he was bitten by a snake. At the end, he was almost blind, and many people believe that he had epilepsy, and that's probably the short list. Paul then tells us that he had a thorn in his side, meaning those sufferings that we just went over. And he asked Christ to remove that thorn 3 times. And this is Jesus' response to the Apostle Paul. "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." I would imagine most of you right now are probably praying, I'm thanking God that I am not the Apostle Paul. We as believers in America today, we do not understand and we cannot grasp what persecution is and what it means to suffer for Christ. This verse is not a genie in a bottle verse. Ask and your wish will come true. This verse is not about God wants to prosper me. He wants to make me successful. God wants to make my life easy. This verse is commonly taught to mean whatever I want and whatever I think, God is then going to grant me that. That isn't what that means. But Paul's words in context here, what they mean is he is content regardless of his circumstances and his situation. Paul is saying, I can do all things through Christ, whether it be good or bad, whether I'm in plenty or want, whether I'm healthy or sick, or whether I'm rich or poor. And that list can continue on and on and on. Paul is saying you can have joy, you can have peace, and you can have freedom through Christ no matter what your sufferings or circumstances are. Many times we are not being taught the real context behind verses that we read, like this verse today, and what God is trying to communicate to us through those verses. The Bible has been turned into a me, I. But what God really wants and desires from us is this: holiness, righteousness, obedience, sacrifice, love, mercy, and grace. So today, remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you, no matter what you are going through. So I hope that really helps you with this verse and puts it into context. You may already know this, but a helpful hint to keep a verse into context is always read the chapter before that verse and read the chapter after that verse. And that'll help you place that verse in context. Thanks again, and I will see you next video.